Hey guys, it's John. It's planner's question time once again, and I've decided to head outside to our lovely garden to do planner's question time because it's a beautiful sunny day out there, and let's face it, it's nicer to change things up a bit. So if there's weird background noises, that's because I'm outside in the fresh air and enjoying myself immensely. Children laughing and crying adds authenticity. Right, it is PQTs, so it is an hour of planners questions far away, ladies and gents. Whilst you're getting your thoughts in gear, a couple of announcements, if I may. This afternoon, I'm really excited to be giving one of the talks at the online property conference. That's on Zoom. If you know nothing about it, flip through the bits and pieces in the group, because I know Alice has posted a couple of hits on that. Not uh, long to go now. It's 4:30 my session. I'm going to be doing permitted development prior notification. Hi Jim, happy Friday to you. So I'm going to be doing permitted development prior notification. Really looking forward to it, to be fair. And the other thing that's going on is on Tuesday next week, we've got our first ever lecture that we're hosting, again doing it via Zoom. All the details in the announcements in the Facebook group. Really looking forward to it. I'm doing on Class O, permitted development, so it's probably the most I've ever thrown in to a permitted development Zoom or anything else permitted development lecture. Uh, we've got about 7 case studies to go through of different PD solutions that we've thrown on different buildings, and a whole lecture on what you should and shouldn't be looking for in terms of these development opportunities. So come and join me for that. All the details are in the announcements on the Property Expert community. All right, guys, I'm going to speak a little bit quieter today because I can, because I'm outside. I'm not in a shed. I'm not having to override bits and pieces, and I do have to save the old voice. So it's now over to you. You've got an hour of questions that you can throw at me. Bin being rolled down a alleyway definitely adds some authenticity there. So let's have your questions, please, ladies and gents. I really want to see what you guys come up with this week. 5 people watching, which is absolutely brilliant. See if we can't get that a little bit higher, especially as it's a Friday. Especially as we're all locked down for another 3 weeks. We may as well make the most of it, haven't we? You know, get some proper thought going on, get some proper intelligence going on out there. Let's have your questions then. Just wishing Andy Morris Ruffle, Andrew Morris Ruffle, a good friend of ours, happy birthday today, because it is most definitely his birthday. So happy birthday. Andy has just got over COVID-19, so he's done brilliantly to get over it. Really pleased to see him fighting fit, or I hope absolutely fighting fit. 6 people watching. Come on then, guys, let's have some questions. Jim, could you advise what can and can't be done to a Grade 2 listed building? Great question, Jim. I could spend years on this. Very, very simply, it all comes down to the building. So, Grade 2 is the lowest of the 3 grades. You've got 2 2-star and 1. But fundamentally, Grade 2 doesn't mean that you can just be knocked about. It's very much about assessing what's original in that building and what interventions can be dealt with. Now, you can carry out changes of use, you can convert them to flats, but bear in mind you're limited to the cellular nature of the building. You're limited to whatever that building presents you. Some Grade 2 listed buildings have been completely bashed around, and we know that and we understand that. So we work with the building that we've got. Some Grade 2 listed buildings are actually in remarkably good condition for their age and their activity, but they're Grade 2 just because they're not as rare as a Grade 2-star or a Grade 1. So you have to really look at what you're doing with that building and understand its framework. Get a really good interior survey done of the building, walk around, and then walk your conservation officer through it, or contact one of us here at TPX would be able to help you really understand it. But every listed building is bespoke, and you have to treat it as such. Hope that helps, Jim. Probably not. It was a bit of a vague answer to a vague question, but we'll go with it. Not a problem, Helen. I'm glad to see him getting better. Robert, any hacks to find an area that build to rent strategy works in? Hacks. You should always assess your building strategy based on build to sell, because that's always your fire sale option. That's always your exit from whatever you're doing as part of that development. What I would be saying, Robert, is make sure it works on the fire sale element and then work backwards from there. So if it doesn't work for build to sell, it's undoubtedly not really going to work well for build to rent. Also, be very wary where the sale price is really, really low. I mean, super low. Places like uh, up in County Durham, for example, you find super low property values, and you wouldn't want to knock a building down because you cannot simply rebuild a building for that value. So you can't even do a conversion for that. And some of them I saw a few years ago where they were 30, 40 grand for a house, and you can't build a house for 30 to 40,000 pounds. So there you might actually have to look at renting but retaining the building. It does all come down to the area. No real hacks there, no real tips or tricks to play. You have to just make sure it works on a straight build model. I hope that helps you. Right, there's some questions answered. That's great. And we are 6 or 7 minutes into the stream. This, of course, being recorded for you by the wonderful world of Facebook, and then I will pop it on the YouTube for you guys to watch it back. I have stolen Mrs. M's ladder today, so I'm not anticipating a need to dive off anytime soon to go and rescue her from what was a comedy incident. Not a problem, Robert. Great. Good questions asked there. Let's have some more, please. We've got plenty of time to go through them in. And whilst I'm on, I'll just reflect a little bit more on the lecture that we're doing, because it's the first time I think that someone's actually just put out and said we're going to do a lecture on something. Our lecture is wholly educational. It's not a course. It's not designed to give you any sort of uh, magic in terms of how to use the system, but it's to help enable your understanding, and that's why we've called them lectures. They're wholly self-contained, and what I mean by that is that we're not upselling off the back of them. We're not trying to create a funnel. We just want to disseminate some really good information. The one on Class O I've written myself, not a problem, Jim. The one um, on Class O I've written myself, and I'm really looking forward to delivering it. It's going to be good fun. We've got 3 people who have agreed to listen to me waffle for an hour, which is quite nice. So let's see if some more join us for that. We're gonna run the lecture with whoever we've got in the room, and you know what? I just welcome the opportunity to give out lots of lovely positive information. I think it's a really good thing for us to be doing. Okay, so let's see if we get any more questions answered, please. I really want to push forward with the chat that we're having. Phil, do you have any specific procedure or list of ways to assess the grain or character of an area, like a planning might? It's all about the best sensors you've got, Phil, for assessment of grain or character is your eyes. I look at the OS mapping for the area, because if you use a service like Nimbus or Land Insight, certainly Nimbus, they give you access to the OS maps. So I take those OS maps and I take off all the noise so I can actually see the patternation of plot, because character is much more than just size of houses, position, building line. It's about plot size, plot width, plot depth, etc., etc. And then from that, I would deal with the uh, scale massing argument. So look at the patternation of mass within the area. And then I would look at the mix of housing types within an area, housing type size and typology. So, if you had big villa style houses, I wouldn't try and insert much more compact houses within that area. So there are it's very subjective character, but there's a whole sequence of sort of structured steps you can go through, and maybe that will be the subject of a YouTube video. What do you think, Phil? I think I feel a YouTube video coming along, where I actually record my screen and just go through, how do I look at character? That's probably quite a good one to do. I hope that sort of gives some insight. Cool. We're getting through some questions here. It's a little bit slow today, but that's sometimes how PQTs goes. If you have any other questions, then just drop them in the comments, and we'll certainly try our best to answer them for you. Do forgive the older slurp of zesty drink. I've got this lovely conference call with you guys, and then I've got 2 other conference calls to do. Phil says definitely. All right, Phil. Well, you're on. I will next week hack together a video which we'll put on the old YouTube that goes through how I look at and make an appraisal on character, and where I think things can be added or not. That feels very anti-guru to me, because that's certainly something the guru's holders are top 10 secrets for getting new houses in a housing area. So we'll just pop it out there and try and challenge some of these secrets all at the same time. Cool. Hi Ross, how you doing? Lovely to see you on PQTs. If you've got any questions, Ross, then just drop them in the comments, and we'll see what we can do about answering them for you. I know some of my colleagues are also online as well. Helen has popped on, which is absolutely lovely. She seems to watch me every single time, which is really quite nice. But we've been going for 12 minutes, and we've got some time left. So let's see what other questions we can get answered for you today. Let's answer some of the comments online whilst we're carrying on. No questions at all? Well, I'll ask you a question then, to be fair. What do we think of a lecture concept for property education? Is it too highbrow? Do you want something that's called a course? Because, we do the Anti-Guru series on YouTube in order to really try and break down and disrupt the property education sector. It's one that's got a really bad name in recent times. Every day is a school day, John, no matter how long we've been practicing. Oh, bless you, Helen. I know you're going to be joining me for the lecture, aren't you, Helen? So that's going to be quite fun. The reason why we've sort of gone down that line is to disrupt that patternation. It's not a free webinar. It's not something that's going to give you 90%, or it's going to hide 90% from you and give you 10. And the important thing is we're not trying to push anything. Now, it's very interesting that we're doing this at the same time that we see a lot of free stuff going on, and we all know what that free stuff is. That free stuff is part of a funnel, and actually, a funnel's not really where we want to be. A funnel is about just dragging you down a rabbit hole of greater and greater and greater expenditure, whereas our view is that if the education's good, then you shouldn't need to go down that rabbit hole. You should, and that's where we are trying to disrupt the models, that the approach to asking people to expend money on education, I think, is a bit flawed at the moment, especially now. So what do you guys think? That's my thesis on it. Oh, good. We're almost using this as like an LBC, many other radio stations available, LBC phone in, but that's always quite fun. Questions, please. Let's have some questions. We should really pre-prepare some more than anything else, but you can comment on the on the feed, and we'll just answer them as they come in. So yeah, 15 minutes to go. There you are. I've done my little pitch for the lecture. Let's see if there's any interest there. If there's not, then yeah, we just won't do it again, because at the end of the day, we only ever do something that people want us to do. Yes, we've been going for about 15 minutes, and we've answered some questions, not many today. I saw you were going to do a seminar on garden plots in October. Do you think you'd do something like this online, including assemblies and background? Um, that seminar, Phil, is part of our workshop series that we've been running for a long, long time, and we try and keep those workshops and we try and keep that for the people who have chosen to invest in our workshops. Now, we keep them very limited because we're not there to compete with others. We just want to spread good information. I think something like specific on garden plots could be expanded out into a lecture, Phil, to be brutally honest. And if that's a lecture that people want, then please whack a poll in on the feed, and we'll put something together for you. I know the next one in the series that we're thinking about is Para 79E, which is the exceptional homes in the countryside paragraph of the NPPF. So, and I know Helen's doing that as our 79E sort of specialist. So it might be something that we well build into the series. I'm happy to look at it, Phil, but again, it has to come from you guys. It has to come from things that you want to see. The Office to Resi prior approval one, which came as a result of a poll that we asked for, and then I reinforced that by saying, do you really want this? And people said yes, so that's why we've done it. You know, that's the way we operate. Not forcing, just asking you what you want. Andrew, not a problem. Not a problem at all. You go and do your BNI, because actually BNI is probably more important than Planner's Question Time, to be fair. You go ahead and do that. I'm not expecting many people on the call today, simply because they know I'm talking at 4:30 or at the property conference. No problem, Phil. Put a poll in the group and see if others will join you in that effort. What I like to see is sort of 20 people turning around and saying yes, absolutely. Helen's got one. Previous caravan now not in use. I can only assume the use is abandoned. However, would you say the use sui generis still stands, or would you say the land has no use? The inquiry was to change use to agriculture again, sui generis use. I would say there's probably a reasonable chance, unless there's a really onerous policy in the local plan that seeks to preserve caravan sites. I would say there's probably an excellent chance that change of use would actually get planning permission. I think they're materially different enough, Helen, in order to warrant the planning application in the first instance, even though it's sui gen to sui gen. But I think if it's in the open countryside, then the restoration of the site back to agriculture is actually a pretty sensible argument, to be fair, and one that should essentially just get the nod by the planning authority. It's effectively development in the countryside that's wholly appropriate to the countryside. Wouldn't you agree? I think that's where I would go with this, Helen. To be fair, great question and a really good exploration of Para 79A, which is effectively appropriate development in the countryside is appropriate development in the countryside. So cool, nice one that. Excellent. 5 people watching, 20 minutes or so gone of PQTs today. I've banned Mrs. M from using a ladder just in case she decides to um, call me away once again, and I've made sure that Jack is safely in his room playing whatever he is playing. So he's okay. The dog is somewhere. but probably inside, staying away from this beautiful sunshine that we've got down on the sunny south coast. It is absolutely glorious today. Just the abandonment issue you had concerned about. I think abandonment is such a tough part of the planning case law, Helen. It's such a hard target to get to that in reality, I wouldn't worry so much about it. I would just say that actually there's a more appropriate use for the land, and that's to restore it back to that agricultural use again. I think that's a very sensible argument. Cool. 21 minutes in. We've got until 2 o'clock together, and then I'm going to move on to another conference call at 3, and then of course the property conference at 4:30, which I am looking forward to, even though I'm probably going to be absolutely shattered by then. But any other questions, then please, please, please throw them on, because we can most definitely get cracking on them. Right. It has been an incredibly busy week for us at TPX. I did another anti-guru video this morning. I'm popping a video up and together on the YouTube channel, just walking you around what we're doing at Raglan Gatehouse. I think that's quite interesting. That's just a wee little video. I'm not a master at this, Helen. I just, I, for some reason, I'm able to retain case law. And as my wife keeps on saying, what doesn't kill me makes me stranger. So I guess it's a case of me just force feeding my brain more case law. Back to what I was saying. So more YouTube videos coming up for you over the next few days. I've got one to put together this afternoon between sessions, just walking you through what we're doing at Raglan Gatehouse. I think that's really quite amusing, and that comes from a video I popped on Facebook a little while ago. Once we'd actually cleared the gatehouse out, allows you to walk it through, and then from that we I'm obviously going to put this video online as soon as it's ready for you guys, so you can watch PQT's back. And then after that, I've got, apparently, according to Phil, a video to do on character, which is all very, very cool. I know Andrew Carter's also asked me to do a video on Para 79E, but I think we're going to leave that for Helen and her lecture, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. And I'm sure you are all too, because how do you get houses in the countryside? Well, you use the exemptions, and we may as well use the rules, so let's tell you about them. To play the game, you have to know the rules. Play the game well, you have to know where you can break them, where the referee is not looking. Right. Whilst I've got you guys, and we're not talking much, saw a very interesting appeal statement today on the fallback argument. Now, interestingly enough, another planning consultant contacted me, and I won't share his full name, but I'll say we shall call him Agent Smith, shall we? For those of you who know who that is, then that's fine. So Agent Smith contacted me and said, what do you think about this? I think it's disastrous for us. And I said, well, I don't think you're reading it right. I think if you actually read what the inspector's saying, rather than just reading the decision, then actually it's not as anywhere near as bad as you are making out. Richard, what are your top 5 planning tips? Oh, that's an excellent question, isn't it? Now, I've enumerated my planning tips into what I call the Victory model. Now, Victory, Victory, each letter standing for a word. So it's not 5 planning tips, it's Victory, 7. It's a 7-letter word. So the first one, V, means verify or validate. Verify what you're doing is in accordance with national and local policy. I is intelligence. Look at the planning history and check that what you're trying to do hasn't been done before or been refused before. C, compare. Get your comparables for development. Get your um, I'll come to that one in a minute, Phil. Get your comparables for development. Yeah, make sure you're not reinventing the wheel. T, build your planning team. So build your team of experts, your ecosystem around you. O, get your options in line. Make sure you have a parachute on any property development. R, get real. Understand the real circumstances surrounding the application site and why you make sure whatever development you do is in line with your objectives. It's your development after all, not anyone else's, and has to fulfill your career goals and aspirations. Victory. And the final one is so important because as long as you're passionate about your development, you will succeed. If you are not passionate about development, then you will not succeed. Right, we've had some more questions. Thank you very, very much. Phil says, have you seen many cases where Historic England have stepped in mid-app and slapped an LBC on a building? I saw one that's local, Arts and Crafts Cottage, and the developer is in for significant money. It's something I had on my radar. I have seen that before, yes, absolutely. It is wholly within English heritage, or their powers to step in as a statutory consultee and say, no, the demolition of the building would result in a building that we haven't known about before. It normally comes about as a result of the council saying, look, we're worried about this building, it's important, can you get involved? And then Historic England jump on in and say, you know what, it's so important, we're going to list it. So I have seen it done. It is, I think, a foolish developer that just thinks that you can take a heritage building, like an undesignated heritage asset, and just march through it. Right? It's something I really do detest in today's development world, and certainly the education sector seems to say, well, if it's not listed, just get rid of it. That's not the test. You have to make sure you're not killing an important part of our country's history. Ross, I'm direct vendor who owns some land on Thames Water pumping site. Half sold off 10 years ago, the other half still in use. Planning permission refused due to the green belt. Planners told the owner they could get planning as two semi-detached residential next door. What's the likelihood of getting planning permission in this green belt? It's Windsor and Maidenhead. Windsor and Maidenhead are a notoriously different council. A planner, who is that planner? Is that a local authority planner? Is that a planning consultant? Who is that? I would personally look at that refusal from 2009 and see if anything has changed, Ross. It is wholly likely that it hasn't changed that much. The other thing is if it's if it's on or near a Thames Water pumping site, there's probably going to be infrastructure there somewhere that you don't know. Um, but I don't agree that just because you've got two semi-detached next door, that automatically leads to further development inside the greenbelt. I think that's wholly flawed. You have to have a look at the 7 exemptions, para 145 of the NPPF. Local consultant, they're hunting for work. I don't think they've got it right. Para 145 of the NPPF is your starting and ending point for the exemptions for development in the Greenbelt. And if all else fails, please get pre-app. Don't just throw a planning application in if you're in the GB. Okay, that was a good set of questions. Nice. You have to forgive me, it's Friday. So we're going to carry on for a bit longer. This is a bit of a shorter PQTs this week, only because of everything else that's going on around me in the next few hours with conference calls abound and everything else. So we're going to carry on for another 10 minutes or so just to see if there are any further questions out there. We have been doing hour-long PQTs, and what we've been noticing is an hour is probably a bit too much. I don't know how you feel, but an hour is probably a bit too much. So we're going to cut it down to 40 minutes today, just to kind of give everyone a good chance to jump on the stream and ask whatever they wanted to ask. We have had a number of different comments in the last a few minutes, which is absolutely great, and I have been able to update everyone on what we're going on and what's going on at TPX, which is kind of part of the reason why we do this, is to give that live update for you guys. But we're going to carry on for another 10 minutes or so, and just and round off this episode of PQTs. There was another bit of feedback we received from publishing this on YouTube, is that an hour is probably a bit too long. But what do you guys think? Is an hour about right, or should we cut it back to the traditional half an hour, just to give you guys a quick blast of what's going on in the planning world? Everyone remaining silent, expecting me to pull some magic out of my backside, which, as people who know me knows, it doesn't happen. It's just knowledge and experience. Nice to see someone online actually with a bit of experience, don't you think? He says with a coy smile in his face. We've got some quite interesting stuff going on at the moment at TPX, to be fair. We're just waiting on a number of different approvals, all held up, annoyingly, because of COVID. Struggling, the planning authorities are very much struggling in catching up with the COVID-19 issues that are presenting. And because they're struggling to catch up, you end up with this circumstance where planning applications are just being delayed. The one piece of advice I give all applicants at the moment is build that delay in. We are very much in very uncertain times. And because we're in these uncertain times, we just need to, bear in mind that we we we, we need to um, build additional time in to what we're doing. Oh, yes, that's a very good. Thank you, Helen. Helen just said, do you want to mention the news that came out this week about lobbying government regarding extending planning permissions? Yes, absolutely, Helen. Let's mention that. Um, I think this is an excellent lobby that's coming forward. A number of solicitors have suggested and given legal advice to the government on how to extend the period for executing planning permissions. And from my reading, the current logical thought, and I'm sure Helen will correct me on this, is to give a blanket year extension as a regulation change to any planning application expiring this year, because in reality, you're not going to be able to build it. Now that will circumvent certain things, but does require a number of different changes to law. The other way I would see it is an alteration to what's called the Section 78 regulation. Now, there's a specific regulation that removes the ability for a council to extend the period of time via altering the condition. I think altering that regulation would also be quite sensible, to be fair, and would just require an amendment to the Act, a very subtle amendment to the Act, deleting that that line. But there is this lobby going on, and I'm sure we will publish exactly when that becomes like a YouGov lobby. So contact your local MP if you can, and ask them to petition government to get this change done, because actually there are a number of planning applications expiring this year, and extending them would help significantly a number of different developers up and down the country. So it's all about doing this together and being one sort of one nation, that kind of thing. So let's do that. That's, I think, a good shout, Helen. Thank you for reminding me of that small thing that's going on. 6 minutes left. Let's finish off on a high with some questions. It would be really good to polish this one off with some questions rather than me just waffling on about what's going on in the world as of today. Are there any new PDs on residential? Ross, oh, be patient, my friend. Coming. Promised by the summer. A few exciting things going on there. We looks like we're going to get some airspace PD. Looks like we're going to get a knockdown or rebuild PD as well. And because we're looking at these permit development rights coming forward, I think they're potentially quite exciting. The knockdown and rebuild one in particular deals with the problem with uh, light industrial PD and office PD in terms of you can't do external alterations. The caveat to that is that with these changes, the government is likely to bring in further controls. It's likely that the small dwellings that we've enjoyed up until now are not going to be allowed to continue. They're going to drop away naturally because, very simply, the proposed, very simply because the development does not. Oh, where am I going with this? Because the development that results does not have natural light in it, and then the other thing is that we're likely to see the national standards brought in formally as part of permitted development, which is designed to take on the gurus who postulate about the microflats. So if you're following a guru at the moment that loves a microflat, do let me know, because I want to really highlight the negative effects of micro dwellings. I knew someone who used to live in a micro dwelling. They're horrible tiny little things, and they're very much hated in the building profession. So do absolutely show and tell about gurus still trying to highlight the benefits of micro flats. Just on Helen's point, yeah, I agree. I think it's Section 78 that's going to get amended, and that's the easiest way to do it. Allow for variations of conditions. But more importantly, I think the conditions regulations need to be tightened up as well. That forces the council to deal with those extensions in a 21-day period. There's no reason why they can't deal with them, especially if they're extant planning applications. Effectively, what are they going to say? We don't want to give you another year because you could do it now. I mean, that would just be stupid. So yeah, Section 78 is the likely one to get amended, I think. 3 minutes left. Time for one more question before I sign off from you guys and go and do some more very interesting planning work. I know I've got to give someone at Maidstone Council a ring. Oh, joy. I do enjoy giving people at Maidstone Council a ring. It's painful at the best of times. But yeah, absolutely. Let's see what else you want to ask me before I sign off in 3 minutes' time. We've got time probably for one more question. If not, I'll just ask a question for you to think about, really. Do we find PQTs helpful? What's in the smoothie, John? Nothing's in the smoothie apart from Diet Coke, which is what I need right now, Ross. Many other Coke flavours available, of course, but it's Diet Coke, and what I need right now, because it's a long day of doing a lot of conference calling, etc., and being the general out there person that I am, hence the amazing shirt that we're wearing today. When's the next TPX Deal Clinic? Oh, great question, Phil. We're going to be bundling that in with Property Expert Network, which is on the first Monday of next month, so the first Monday in May. And our guest speaker is my good friend and colleague Emma Morby, who's going to be talking about landlord regulation, and then we're going to do some deal clinicking as well. So don't worry, Phil, you don't miss out. If you want to come and join us for that pen, then absolutely go to our website. You'll find all the details, and you can just sign up there. You can also find all the details inside the Property Expert community group as well, because that's where we hide all those lovely details for you guys to enjoy. But yeah, we'll be definitely doing Deal Clinic on the next Property Expert Network as part of what we're doing that evening for you guys. Once more, part of our free offering, just to make sure that you get the most value out of the COVID-19 crisis that we appear to all be in right now. Okay, we've got 1 minute to go, and I'm just going to sort of finish you off with a final thought, really, which is, keep going with the stuff that we're doing online. The Anti-Guru channel, I'm actually really quite pleased with. I'll be posting this on that channel, so have a look at that. We do have our own podcast as well, and if you want to join us for that podcast, then please get in contact and do so. But we're here to throw as much information out as possible to help you guys during this time. Okay, that is 1:40. It's been PQTs. I've been John McDermott from the garden for once. I will see you guys very, very soon.